Don't save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. And this is a statement by Warren Buffett. And he could not be so clear in that statement, and it could not be so true. And he's basically saying that rather than just always attaining another level of income and increasing your income over time, how about look at how we are spending our money and how we are saving our money or very little of it. And that was basically me at 27 in the city, earning a really good income in the tech space, but my finances were pretty poor. I wasn't the best at saving, and I didn't come from a background where I had people that I could emulate in terms of how to save. And it got to a point where I was just not saving enough, and I had so many goals and aspirations. I wanted to build a property portfolio, I wanted to get investing, I wanted to build passive income, but all that seemed so impossible because I wasn't able to save. And I knew things had to change. I knew that I had to change the way I thought about money. And that's why I set out the goal. By the age of 29, I would say $50,000. But actually that completely changed, because by the age of 29, I'd not only saved $50,000, but I actually saved in excess of $120,000. And that propelled me into building my financial statements in terms of my property investing. It helps me start investing into stocks really easily, and building my financial portfolio in the stock market. And it also basically enabled me to start to build really strong financial knowledge and confidence and become a saver that had the ability to invest in future. And I want to show you how I did that with very 6 simple steps that has basically been the bedrock of how I've been able to build my investment portfolio, been able to save radically over the years and continue to save now, but ideally with the idea of investing there in the future. Let's get started. So number 1 is money mindset, and you have to change your perception of money, your understanding of money, and you really have to delve into what is my relationship with money, what is my mindset with money. And I really had to see what was my emotional reaction to money when I had money, when I lost money, when I was able to get, a bonus. Well, how did I react to money? And you really have to put yourself into 2 categories here. There are people who are consumers when it comes to getting an income and just spending. So they're pretty much consumers and they spend a lot of their income. And then there are people who have a preservation mindset, in the sense that they actually decide, although I'm going to get an income, I'm actually going to preserve some of that money for the future. And I had to decide which category I was in because I had to understand my relationship with money. And one of the best books I would recommend to understand your relationship with money is a book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And it really does show you how to think about your relationship with money. It really just thinks about, how am I responding to money? And for me, the key thing I realized was that I had a very consumer mindset to money. I'd get money and I would spend it here and there and not be able to even account for it. And what I had to then do was understanding my mindset of money, my perception of money, my emotional relationship with money. I changed that and reversed the flow. And I realized that I didn't have to buy these extra items. I didn't have to, go out every other weekend. I didn't have to spend that money on takeaways all the time. And you really start to delve into your relationship with money. And it's not until you break the habits of your mindset with money and you really go into detail as to, what am I doing here with money? Like, when I see money, what's my feelings? When I lose money, what's my feelings? When you understand that, you really understand how to take the next steps into understanding your financial state and where you are financially. Next thing I did was what you call a 365-degree financial detox. And it sounds really complex, but it really is a simple model that you can follow. And it was basically looking at my finances over the past 3 months, 6 months, depending on, your duration. I think the longer the better. If you can do a detox or financial review of your finances over a minimum 6 months is ideal. You get to understand your spending pattern. So I went to look at my spending patterns and how I was spending money. And I came across this 365 detox model for myself because it was the best way that I could understand how I was spending my money. And I categorized that into 3 boxes, and it was the U box, the needs box, which is basically your essentials, and the wants. And I started to look at exactly where was my money going. I was allocating it based on, was I, putting money aside for myself in terms of saving, investing, upskilling and learning, Or was I just spending in all the wants that I wanted in that nice holiday, an extra coffee, out dinners, another takeaway? What was I actually spending my money on? I started to look at that in a little bit more detail. And we're going to go into the you, needs and wants model. And I want to explain in detail how you could possibly use this and improve your financial situation. Review your current state, take a snapshot of your current state, and then decide the next course of action in terms of actually there could be funds and finances in there that can actually propel you into financial growth and savings from just reallocating your funds. So when I talk about the you, needs and wants model, it's basically putting your finances into 3 categories. So the question mark here is pretty much the you. So that's the you category. Okay, this is all about you. Okay, and in essence, what we're looking at here is, where am I investing my money? When my money comes in, where is that money actually going? Okay, so the you is you. That's, so are you investing in things like, I would say, are you putting money into your savings account? So are there any savings? Are you putting anything into your emergency funds? Are you putting aside anything in terms of your skills and courses? So that's, maybe I'll call that educational. Is there anything you're investing into educational wise? And then are you investing? Because it's not just about saving, but it's also about investing. Okay, so this was that category. Then the needs category are everything in relation to your essentials. And that's the things that you need. So that's how I put it is, if I did not have this item this month, would I be able to fully function as a human being? Okay, or will I be able to survive as a human being? And a coffee at Starbucks is not classified, guys, as a need or an essential. So in terms of the essentials, let's go through the examples. One example would definitely be your rent. So rent or a roof over your head, some sort of accommodation. Okay, so accommodation. Most likely you'll pay some sort of utility bills, so maybe gas or electric. So I'll put that as gas/electric. Another essential could be your transportation to and from work. So this is something that obviously you need. Without transport, you probably won't be able to get to work. So transport is probably quite important. Some form of transport, or you can call it gas. So gas that you need for your car, or if you're an electric user, then that will be under that capacity. The next thing you'd probably look at is things like your food. And again, guys, eating out every day is not an example of actual an essential, but food that you need, minimal food that you need to enable to survive every single month. Okay, that's your standard groceries. Then everything else pretty much comes into a wants category. So when I was doing this exercise, I did this like breaking it down into absolute categories. And then my wants, for me, I had things like pretty much all my subscriptions. So I put them as subs. Yeah, so these are all your subscriptions. And then the things I was having out was takeaways. So that's your takeaways every other day or every other weekend. So takeaways were something that was increased quite a bit during my time. Going out with friends. So this is like all your going out essentials. So going out with friends, these are events, activities. Holidays can also be classified as these are wants. Okay. And then there could just be random stuff that you buy, like retail therapy. And I put this under retail. Okay. And when I did this exercise, I quickly realized that I was doing a lot of wants, very simple needs, which weren't too bad, but my wants were absolutely massive. And what I need to do was find out how much of this was I spending? How much was I spending of this? So I was spending a far larger amount on this than I was in this. And I needed to find a way to cut this down. So I did something whereby I just decided I have less takeaways, maybe not all complete go cold turkey. I would decide not going out consistently every other weekend, but maybe once or twice a month rather than every other weekend. Things like holidays, I'll space them out. And retail therapy, I reduced that drastically. And by doing this exercise and then also looking at, is there any alternatives that I can also break down in my needs and wants? So in the needs and wants section, is there anything in here that I can get an alternative for that could be cheaper? Do I have to have a car to get to work, or could I take the bus or the train? Gas and electric, can I switch providers and make it a little bit cheaper? When it comes to renting and accommodation, can I find someone a little bit cheaper, or can I find a better rate on my mortgage? Things like that was what I was thinking about. And the food items, is every single food item an absolute essential? And what I realized was that eventually by doing this, a huge amount of funds was actually moving across, and I was reinvesting it back into myself. And some elements of needs were also going back into me. And I found out eventually that I could save up to $1,000 per month that could be reallocated and invested back into one of these funds. But ideally, my goal was to save. So I put a lot of emphasis on saving a lot of my funds in my savings account. And that's how I built a savings pool, basically, of thousands and thousands of dollars per month in savings, and building my savings fund. So the next thing was automation. And because I was able to know exactly how much I could save through reallocating the funds that were actually spent on wants and some of the funds that were spent on my needs, and reallocating those funds into my savings, I had to automate. I remember when I started this process, initially I did it all manually. I'd wake up literally on payday and I would reallocate as much money as I could necessary in a given month to my savings account. And I did that religiously over a couple of months. Eventually I started getting a good hang of how much I was actually putting away in my savings and how much I could put away without any access. And I automated it. And I would challenge you to consider, what are the things that you can actually automate? So are there certain things that actually, if you can save away $1,000 per month, can you automate that and set it aside to an automatic savings account, okay? And you can do this by direct debit or standing order. But what it does is that it allows you to commit to savings. So you're not just saying it anymore, you're now doing it, and you're actually doing it through systems automation, okay? Sounds very technical, but it really is just setting up a standing order or direct debit and funneling that money into a savings account. And I then also separated my funds into certain categories. So I had a savings account, I had an emergency fund account, I had a bills account, which is all the bills that I needed for my essentials, all my needs, and then I had a little bit of money aside for, things like going out with friends and takeaways. But by doing that, I had pots of money, and that was a really good way for me to really reallocate my money, but also commit to the purpose of saving religiously over a certain amount of period of time. Another thing I would suggest as well when it comes to automation is saving in a way where you can find the highest interest. So I was putting my money into what you call a notice account, a fixed rate account. And what that basically does is it gives you a higher rate because you are obligated to put money into the account for a certain amount of time and you can't withdraw it. So for example, I would open up a fixed account and it would only allow me to, withdraw funds over a 90-day notice period. So what that basically means is if I want to withdraw $1, $100, $500, I would have to basically submit a request, and then 90 days later that funds will come into my account. The good thing about doing that was that I was able to pretty much ensure that actually I wasn't spending any money, because if you're thinking about it, if you have to give a lot of notice to access a savings account, ensure that you're not going to likely to need the money. But also what it did as well is that ensured that I was maximizing my savings as much as I possibly could. So by putting it into the higher interest rate savings account, I was maximizing my money. And that's how I also compounded on my savings. So not just reallocating my funds and finding funds that were basically being misallocated to things I did not need. That was one way of increasing my savings, but I also finding a higher interest rate account allowed that the money that was sitting there waiting for me to invest in the future was compounding at a higher rate than the average. My fourth one is on outward perception, and this is my analogy of keeping up with the Joneses. And what this basically means is that you are worried about the perception you have of how people perceive you in your life. So say for example, you just want to be ensuring that you've got the latest gear, you've got the latest phone, or you are doing something that looks like I am busy enjoying my life. But actually, truly, it's costing you an excess amount of money, maybe money you don't even have, and you're trying to keep up with an image that actually doesn't exist. And I would say that one thing I had to do was stop thinking about what other people thought about me and actually eliminate the idea of perception of others and what did I think about myself. The term I like to use is fear of missing out. And fear of missing out, or what we call FOMO, is your thoughts that if I don't do it now, I will miss my opportunity. But actually there's so much power in delayed gratification. And delayed gratification is pretty much saying, I might not be able to do it now, but maybe in the future, I might be able to invest in that and do it later. Or actually, I can actually wait for the long-term benefits of saving because I know I'll have a greater outcome in the future. And I did that for 36 months where I delayed the gratification of anything that I really, really wanted because I knew that the bigger goal was to ensure that I would save enough money to invest in the things that I really wanted. So I would say to you, what are things that you are always worried what people think about you financially, that actually if you let those things go, maybe you could actually focus on yourself more, invest in yourself, and come out better on the other side. The fifth one is creative spending. Now, I don't believe you need to live a absolutely frugal, solitary confinement lifestyle. I just don't agree with that. And the reason why I don't agree with that is because if you literally go cold turkey on saving and you literally save absolutely everything and you don't have fun, what most likely will happen is you'll go back to your old habits. So I don't believe in going cold turkey, but what I do suggest is looking at alternatives. And this is about the opportunity cost. And this analogy basically says, do I have to go to a concert every couple of months? Or do I have to go to 5 concerts a year? Maybe I will go to maybe a few of the 5 that I would go to, and maybe I can go for a cheaper alternative or an alternative concert that costs me a little bit less. That's an example of opportunity cost. Another opportunity cost is, say for example, there's a specific brand of clothing or food that you really, really like, or a restaurant that you really, really like. Let's talk restaurants. And you really want to go to that restaurant because it's, it's 5 stars, Michelin, it's got all the, the bells and whistles. However, maybe you can save $150 spending in that restaurant and going to an alternative, maybe the same cuisine, but not as expensive with a high price tag. So you're not necessarily not going out or not going to your finest places or not going to concerts, you're just finding alternatives for it. So you're finding a cheaper alternative to what you would normally spend. And I think this is a great way to still live a very frugal lifestyle without feeling very limited. Another example is, do you have to have the Starbucks coffee every single day? Or could you decide that today I might have a Starbucks, but tomorrow I might have a Starbucks made by me? So going home and making the coffee yourself. So there are ways around this. And I would highly suggest that looking into alternatives is a great opportunity. Then when it came to holidays now, I was deciding actually, do I have to go on peak seasons? Now it's quite difficult for people who've got kids because most likely you're going to have to go on peak seasons because the kids are off at the peak seasons. However, if you're not in that situation and there's a way you can actually get around that, perhaps looking at off-peak season travel could be your cheaper alternative to travels and saving you a couple of thousands of dollars. So consider that next time when you're looking at your savings. But this is also a creative way for me to maximize my savings because any extra funds I had to, the wants that I had, if I found an opportunity cost, the difference that I would save, I would reallocate that into saving for myself and put it into my savings account. And finally, the one that I would say literally catapulted and was a big catalyst in terms of savings for me was upskilling. And upskilling was my way of increasing my market value and becoming an expert in my field. So I was in the tech space and I decided that I was going to upskill and learn a few more skills that allow me to go freelancing. And by going freelancing, that basically enabled me to go from being a salaried income earner, so going and earning a monthly salary, to actually working with multiple clients and then charging clients based on my skill sets per piece of project. So that basically increased my income from, let's say, $3,000 to $4,000 a month to $10,000, sometimes in some cases $15,000 per month. And that was a big game changer for me because earning from 3 to 15 was a huge difference in income. So I increased my income. However, what I didn't do, I did not increase my wants or my essentials. So my spending was kept very, very low. And that goes back to the point of Warren Buffett where he talks about ensuring that you are actually saving more than you are spending. So although I was earning more, my spending never increased. So that basically meant there was lots more funds available to reallocate into my savings. So if I was going for saving $2,000 to $3,000 per month, I was now saving $5,000, $6,000 in my savings per month. And that was the key to catapulting my saving. But I wouldn't have been able to get there had I not mastered my relationship with money, had I not understood my current climate of how I'm spending money, and found a way of actually automating and improving my way of actually spending money, and making sure I was saving for a rainy day, saving for the future, saving for those investments, so that when I earned more money, I already had all those skill sets to basically continue saving for the future. So I hope this video really helped you, and I ask you, what are the things that you might be doing to implement into your savings journey that might help you to catapult your savings? See you on the next one.